Buenas tardes y bienvenidos amigos to your favorite aviation channel. Today we are here with quite a special video. It's an airport update for Guatemala City La Aurora International Airport. This is probably the most detailed depiction of Guatemala City Airport anywhere on YouTube or probably the internet right now. Not many airport updates for Guatemala City out there right now. I believe Aviation LAS might have done a few, but not many model airport updates for Guatemala City, which makes this video even more exciting. Of course, this being a one-time update for now, there is no specific time frame. I literally just put every single airline in my collection that flies to Guatemala City. I put it in this video. So quite a lot of stuff to go through. Guatemala City is actually the fourth busiest airport in Central America, following Panama City's #1, San Jose, Costa Rica's #2, San Salvador's #3, and then Guatemala City is #4. So really cool. Didn't even know that before I went there this past summer. That's actually why I'm doing this video, because you might have been wondering, why am I doing Guatemala City? That's such a random airport to choose. But I did visit Guatemala this past summer, went in July, spent 2 weeks, came back first week of August. So my Spanish teachers from high school, they actually take a group of alumni down there every year to build houses. So I went this past summer. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories, and definitely an experience that definitely gonna remember for the rest of my life. I'm not too sure if I'll do it again. Maybe I don't know about next summer, but I might consider it sometime in the future. It was definitely an experience to remember. So I did fly in and out of Guatemala City Airport, obviously, on Aeromexico. You might have seen those videos on the channel from a couple months back. So I'll be sure to include some details about the airport that I saw during my time flying in and out. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get this video started. Really excited for it. So let's go. Alright, so let's begin with a quick little setup tour for what we got here for Guatemala City La Aurora International Airport. Just like 90% of my model airports, this is not 100% accurate, but the overall idea is there. This is basically what the terminal looks like. Right here, this is actually the only area where you get picked up or dropped off from. So the arrivals, departures areas in this part of the terminal. There actually is a lot more structure this way. As you can see with the Google Maps image right here, there's a lot more structure that I didn't put because I thought it'd be kind of weird to put like a foam block right in front. That looked kind of weird, so I didn't put that there. But just know that there is a lot more stuff back there. And one of the more interesting things about Guatemala City Airport is that the roadway, like after you get picked up or dropped off, the roadway actually goes like this. It actually loops around behind the ramp, but it doesn't go directly behind the ramp. It actually goes like on a hill, like an artificial cliff or something. So it kind of goes like this, like when you're driving past the airport or when you're leaving the airport, you're actually like above the planes. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's really weird. If you've been to this airport, you know what I'm talking about. It's like a small cliff. Like the road is like elevated. It goes as it passes the airport. I have no idea how to explain it, but if you know, you know. So yeah. So the terminal, the weird thing about it is that I found about it at least, is that even though the main check-in security, all that stuff is in that part, the terminal doesn't branch off in two directions. As many airports do. They have the main like drop-off area security check-in in one part, one central part, and then the terminals or concourses kind of branch out in different directions. In Guatemala City, it's just like everything is there, but it just branches out this way, which is pretty interesting. I've never seen that before. So everything it's just there, and then you go that way to access all the gates. So yeah, and it is kind of staggered like this, by the way. It goes like this, and then I don't know why, but the structure is a bit staggered, so it's just like that. So I'll try to get the full terminal here. Here's the Google Maps image, so I don't know how accurate it is, but basically all the gates are there. Everything is there, so that's all that matters. Another thing, Guatemala City actually is all glass jetways from what I could tell. Everything in real life, it's all glass jetways, but I didn't have enough, so I just put my regular GeminiJets jetways for the ones I couldn't put glass jetways. But every single jetway in Guatemala City is a glass jetway. Just want to make that clear. I just didn't have enough to put everywhere. So yeah, anyways, that's enough talk. Let's go ahead and get started with the aircraft. Alright, so first off here we have the TAG Airlines Saab 340 making service out to Tuxtla Gutierrez in Mexico. Was flight 426. Definitely butchered that pronunciation. I have never been able to pronounce that city's name, but TGZ is the airport code, and TAG Airlines, or TAG, Transportes Aéreos Guatemaltecos, they are the flag carrier of Guatemala. They have a fleet of ATR 72s and a couple of Saab 340s. I believe this route is only operated on the Saab 340. I think it's the only Saab route they have. But of course, it's really difficult to even track their fleet because most of them are pretty old planes except for the ATRs. So really you have no idea where these things are flying to unless you actually fly them in real life. But I'm pretty sure this route that I just mentioned is the only one served on the Saab 340. Everything else is mostly the ATR 72. I don't even know how many Saabs are active right now because when we were taxiing out for departure in Guatemala City, we saw a bunch of Saab 340s at the hangars, so I'm not too sure if they're in storage or getting maintenance done right now, but it was a couple of months ago, so they might have been back in service by now. But otherwise, as far as I'm aware, the ATR 72s are the main backbone of the TAG Airlines fleet. So of course it's not in this model is not in TAG Airlines livery, but I wanted to get as many domestic flights in this video as I could. I don't have an ATR 72 that's not in an airline livery that I could use. I have a PIA one, but you're not gonna see that here because it's in PIA livery. But this white one, I thought it was good enough to put for TAG Airlines, so that's why we have it here. Alright, moving along, we have this Delta 757-200 just came in from Atlanta. It's flight 1830. We'll be making service back to Atlanta in about an hour and a half, 2 hours as flight 1831. Delta is only 757s out of Guatemala City for now, both from Atlanta and then also from Los Angeles. So Atlanta, they're also competing with Frontier between Atlanta and Guatemala City, which is interesting. But Los Angeles is actually surprisingly really, actually not surprisingly, because I'm sure there's a big Guatemalan population in Los Angeles, but Los Angeles to Guatemala City is a really busy route. Delta operates it, Alaska operates it, I believe, Volaris operates it as well, and then there might have been one more airline that I'm forgetting, but there's a decent amount of flights. Avianca, I think, is the other one. There's a decent amount of flights between LA and Guatemala City every day, which is pretty cool, and Delta operates it as well. But this one's going off to Atlanta later on as flight 1831. Next up here we have the JetBlue Airbus A321, just came in from New York JFK as flight 1328. We headed back out to JFK in about an hour and a half as flight 1329. This route is actually operated by the A321neo in real life, which I do not have, but I'm assuming the 321's probably made some visits to Guatemala City at some point, and this one actually has the same tail design that you see on the neos and the A220s and whatnot, so I mean, the spirit is there still, right? But JetBlue, this is their only flight into Guatemala City. They only serve JFK. They don't even fly to Fort Lauderdale at the moment, so just New York JFK. And it's a pretty late night flight as well. It comes in at like 11 p.m. and departs at like 1 a.m. So yeah, but that is their service into Guatemala City. Next here we have the Iberia Airbus A350-900, just came in from Madrid as flight 6341 and will soon be returning to Madrid as flight 6342, but this time with a stopover in San Salvador. So Iberia does not fly the 350 to Guatemala. Of course, they fly the A330-200, which I do not have. Matter of fact, today, as I'm recording this video, they actually flew the Level A330, which is their like low-cost subsidiary or something. They flew that one into Guatemala City today, which is pretty cool. But as I mentioned earlier, I hinted at this earlier, Iberia's routing into Guatemala City, it's actually, they fly directly from Madrid to Guatemala City, and then the return flight actually stops over in San Salvador. But you can't fly solely between Guatemala and El Salvador. You have to, well, it's not an option. So basically they stop over in El Salvador to take on more passengers, and then the flight continues on to Madrid. And I just realized, I can't believe I didn't realize this before, but this model is missing a landing gear. It must have fallen off as I was setting up this video, but hopefully I can find that tire. It's not missing a landing gear, it's missing a tire, sorry. But hopefully I can find the tire soon when I'm cleaning things up, because I did not realize that. That's a big problem, so hopefully I'll be able to fix that after this video. Alright, moving along here, we have the Volaris Airbus A320neo, just came in from Cancun as flight 211, making service back out to Cancun as flight 210. Volaris has a decent number of flights as well into Guatemala City. They have their El Salvadorian subsidiary as well, Volaris El Salvador. They also serve Guatemala City from San Salvador, of course. But aside from Cancun, they of course fly to Mexico City, and I believe they also fly to LAX, if I didn't mention that already. But they have a handful of destinations from Guatemala City, which is pretty cool. The overall like Latin American, Central American like airline operations, they're really, really cool overall, and you'll see a bunch of other examples later in the video. But yeah, that was Volaris. They fly their entire fleet, A320, 320neo, 321, 321neo, and also the 319, which they don't even have that many of those left in the fleet, but those also come here. Alright, so pushing back from gate 6, we have the Aeromexico 737-800 making service back to Mexico City, as I believe that'd be flight 671. This is the flight, I think it was this flight that I took back to Mexico City when I was leaving Guatemala, also on the 737-800 flight 671, and that comes in as flight 670. So that's going back to Mexico City. And next to that, because it arrives actually right around the same time as this flight departs, Aeromexico flight 678 from Mexico City just pulled into the gate operated by the 737 MAX 8 at gate number 7. And the cool thing is, this is the exact airplane that I flew into Guatemala City on that exact same flight, XA-MAG, the first 737 MAX delivered to Aeromexico. So that's the exact plane that I flew into Guatemala back in July. Pretty cool. So yeah, Aeromexico, I think they have 3 daily flights, at least 3 in the summer, 2 the rest of the year daily from Mexico City into Guatemala City. So yeah, pretty cool. We got both 737 MAX 8 and the 800, but they also fly the MAX 9 occasionally. It varies. All these like Latin American carriers, they'll fly their entire 737 fleet to Guatemala City. Aeromexico with their MAXs and 800s, and then Copa Airlines, you'll see later on, they also fly their 800s and MAX 9s to Guatemala City as well. Over here at gate number 8, we have the American Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8 just pulled into the gate from Miami as flight number, what flight is this? 343. We headed back to Miami in about 2 hours as flight 1182. They have a decent amount of flights into Guatemala City American. I believe it's like, I don't even know, I didn't count, but they have a decent amount, at least 2 a day probably from Miami, and then I think another 2 a day from Dallas Fort Worth. So they fly to both DFW and Miami from Guatemala City. So they have a decent presence here as well. Moving right along, we have the Avianca A320 with the TACA Heritage livery coming in on a domestic flight from Flores as flight 705. I believe that's the only domestic route in Guatemala served on a mainline aircraft. All the other ones are served with turboprops. But it's coming in from Flores, so soon we headed out to Bogota in Colombia as flight 743. And as I was saying earlier, with all these Latin American airlines having a bunch of cool little subsidiaries, Avianca is no exception. They have a bunch of different subsidiaries in both South America and Central America. So obviously they have Avianca, the main Avianca is based in Colombia, then they also have Avianca Ecuador. In Central America, they have Avianca Costa Rica, Avianca El Salvador, and then they have 2 planes for Avianca Guatemala. So yeah, a bunch of really cool little planes. But the thing is, they really mix the planes every now and then, so it's never going to be 100% Avianca Guatemala planes operating Avianca Guatemala flights, if you know what I mean. So, for example, this flight from Flores and then the flight that goes from Guatemala to Bogota, it's not always operated by Avianca Guatemala aircraft. Sometimes it'll be operated by Avianca Colombia planes. Sometimes it might be Avianca Costa Rica planes, because they all have the same general livery. They all have the Avianca logo. The only thing that's different is whether or not they have you can see this one has the Colombia flag in the front. You can kind of see it. So that's kind of the only difference. It's really interesting because actually Avianca is doing a flight right now. They just started service from Guatemala City to Chicago, which starts in San Jose, stops in Guatemala, goes to Chicago, and then does the opposite routing on the way back. And that flight's operated by Avianca Costa Rica, but recently they've been flying their Avianca Colombia planes on that route. So they kind of mix and match whatever planes they have across their subsidiaries. It's really weird. I don't know how else to explain it. This one, the cool thing about this plane is that it's got the TACA Heritage tail. TACA was the Honduran airline. TACA, I think they were based in Honduras or something. I think, right? Honduras or El Salvador? I think it's El Salvador. My bad. One of those two. But they went. They don't exist anymore because Avianca took over TACA. If you recall, they used to have a bunch of TACA livery planes that existed up until like 2018. They all got repainted into Avianca or something like that. So yeah, TACA, LAXA, Aviateca, all these different Latin American, Central American airlines are all under Avianca now. So they have a bunch of different heritage schemes. My favorite one personally would have to be the LAXA retro livery, the Costa Rican airline heritage scheme. That one, the stripes flow so well on that livery. It almost looks like a standard livery. It's so nice how that one looks. And that one comes to Guatemala City a lot as well. Same with the LAXA heritage livery as well. And this one too, the TACA heritage comes through Guatemala City quite often too. So it's pretty cool that I got this. I have the standard livery coming in soon, the A320neo. So unfortunately I did not get it in time to make this video, but Hopefully you'll see that in some other videos in the future. But that's Avianca. Had a nice long discussion about Avianca, but there we go, Avianca. Next up here is the Copa Airlines Boeing 737-800, came in from Panama City as flight 380. We'll be continuing onwards to Managua in Nicaragua as flight 380 again, same flight number. And then from Managua, it's going to operate flight 381 back here to Guatemala City and then continue back to Panama City afterwards. So Copa has a handful of different routes from Guatemala City. They don't just serve Panama City. They serve Managua, like I mentioned, which is actually the only flight from Guatemala to the country of Nicaragua, as far as I'm aware. So they have Panama City, Managua, and then they also have another flight to San Jose in Costa Rica. Interestingly enough, that goes from Panama City to Guatemala and then Guatemala City to San Jose. So yeah, all these the Latin American airlines, they got some really cool routes through here. I really like seeing that. Let me actually show you. I didn't mention all of Avianca's routes because they have so many. We talked about Copa. Let's actually show you Avianca, like, before I forget. So you have Costa Rica. Oh, you have Avianca. Then you have Avianca Costa Rica. Then you have Avianca El Salvador, and then you have Avianca Guatemala. So yeah, it's they have a lot, as you can see. And then moving down, you have Copa, like I said, and then all the other ones that we'll get to. But yeah, it's really cool. I've never covered this before on the channel. Latin American aviation overall, I haven't really covered much. So it's nice to get to talk about it in this video. But yeah, Copa, that's off to... interesting story about the Copa flight, actually. Right after, as I was leaving the airport here in Guatemala when I had gotten off my flight, as we were driving away, I got a glimpse of the... What was it? The Connect Miles special livery. It was parked at this exact gate. Here's a picture of it. It's not a good picture, but it was parked at that gate. It was actually operating the Managua flight, this exact flight that I just showed you. So yeah, pretty cool to be able to see that. I saw it again in Chicago a couple months later, which is really, really cool as well. So yeah, nice story right there. Right here, just pushing out of the remote stand, or one of the remote stands I should say, we have this UPS 767-300 freighter going back to Miami as flight 353. I think that's the only city they serve from Guatemala City. They also fly 757s here from Miami as well, but I thought the 767 would be a bit more exciting. Other cargo carriers in Guatemala City, DHL is a big one, and then I think today they just got KLM Cargo 747-400, which is technically operated by Martin Air Cargo, something like that. So those are two cargo airlines, and then I think 21 Air might fly there at some points with their 767-200s. But yeah, they have a decent amount of cargo ops in Guatemala, but this is just one of them because I don't have models of any of the other airlines that I just mentioned, so I thought it'd be really cool to get some of the cargo action in here, even though UPS usually comes in really late at night, like early in the morning, depending how you look at it, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., but I still wanted to get them in the update. Next up here, just taxiing up for departure, making its debut on the channel. I don't believe I've shown this model before. It's a rather new model though. Spirit Airbus A320neo in the updated all black titles, and also the A320neo face mask, or mask cockpit windows I should say. This aircraft is headed off back to Fort Lauderdale as flight 244 and came in as flight 243. Spirit's got 3 destinations from here, from Guatemala City. They have Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Houston, and we'll see the Orlando flight in a few moments, but that's going back to Fort Lauderdale. Okay, next up is the Frontier Airbus A320neo, just came in from Atlanta as flight 41. We'll soon head back to Atlanta as flight number 40. Frontier is mainly doing A320neos. Well, that's most of their fleet is 320neos, but they mainly fly these into Guatemala City, of course, and then they also have service to Miami. I'm not too sure how often that flight runs. It's like a couple times a week. But yeah, they're competing with Delta on Atlanta service and then American Airlines for Miami. So this one's here from Atlanta. It's gonna head back to Atlanta. Alright, here's an airline that I honestly forgot flew to Guatemala City. It's Alaska Airlines, 737-900ER in the One World livery. Alaska actually flies the 800 here, but don't worry about that. This aircraft is just pulling in from Los Angeles as flight 1353, heading back out to LAX as flight 1354. I don't even know if I mentioned Alaska earlier when I was talking about all the airlines that fly to LA from here. So you have Delta, Alaska, Volaris, I think Avianca, I said Avianca, and I think that's all of them, right? It's like 4 or 5 different airlines. A lot of availability between Guatemala City and LAX. Pretty cool. So yeah, this is their only destination. Surprisingly, they don't fly to Guatemala City from anywhere else. And it's really cool that Alaska does LAX to Guatemala City. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I definitely wanted to get this in the update. It's also not that hard to spot. This flight comes in around 6, 7 a.m. and departs back to LA around 10:30, 11 a.m. I didn't get to see Alaska when I was there, but they do fly to Guatemala City, so that's why that's here. Alright, next we got the United 737 MAX 8, just freshly arrived from Houston as flight 1902. We headed back out to Houston later as flight 1901. United's got three year-round destinations from Guatemala City and then one seasonal. So Houston, Washington Dulles, and Newark are all year-round, and then they have seasonal service to Chicago. I'm not too sure when that flight's probably ended by now. At least during the summer, they did Chicago, I believe, once a week. So that's kind of why I didn't get to fly that one directly from Chicago to Guatemala City, because it only runs once a week during the summer. But yeah, they got 4 destinations in total, which I believe that's the most of any U.S. airline, at least. Or sorry, scratch that, of the U.S. legacy carriers, because Delta's got 2. American also has 2, if I'm not wrong, Dallas and Miami. I don't think American has Chicago seasonally, but yeah. Moving on, Spirit, we'll just do Spirit while we're at it, is the 319 right here. And fun fact, I saw the Spirit 319 at this exact gate when I was there. That's why I put it here. This one is doing the Orlando flight 515 in from MCO, and it's going to be flight 514 back to Orlando. So Spirit also does Houston, like I mentioned, so they are directly competing with United on that route. And then, United's competing with Avianca on the Dulles flight. And then Newark has no competition, obviously, because nobody wants to fly to Newark. But Chicago, when that's in season, they'll compete with Avianca on that one again. But there's a lot of competition between U.S. carriers and Latin American airlines, between Guatemala and various U.S. destinations. And by Latin American airlines, I mean Volaris and Avianca. There's nobody else, because Copa doesn't fly to the U.S. from here. It's just Avianca and Volaris when it comes to competition. But that's all the aircraft, actually. Oh, sorry, one more aircraft. Sorry, that's all the aircraft at the terminal, but we have one more aircraft. So quickly, here's some GSE that they usually just put a bunch of random GSE there, so I just put it there for decoration. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you there. Let's go on to the last aircraft. And last but not least, quite a special aircraft here is the World Atlantic McDonnell Douglas MD-83, making service out to McAllen, Texas as Flight 601. This did come in today. At the time of making this video, it came into Guatemala City today. This is 808 WA, but the plane that came into Guatemala City today was 804. So World Atlantic and Global X, they've both been making frequent visits to Guatemala City on deportation flights, I believe it is. It's a bit of a depressing topic, but U.S. government, I believe, has been really cracking down on the deportation stuff lately. So they've been operating a bunch of flights from, mostly it's usually McAllen, Texas, or Harlingen, Texas, to various Latin American cities. So World Atlantic has been doing the bulk of them. World Atlantic and Global X, they've been doing most of them. Not just Harlingen and McAllen, sorry. They also do a bunch from Miami as well. So this one came in today. These actually don't park at the terminal. Obviously, they park at the private jet area, which is actually right across the runway. So again, the runway would be like right here, and then they would park like right around here. So when they taxi out for departure, they would come out onto the runway, or across the runway, then come out to the taxiway around here, and then taxi down to the threshold, backtrack, then take off. So it shouldn't actually be this close to the terminal in real life, but I had to put this in because I never get to showcase. I don't think I've ever showcased this aircraft at all on the channel. It's been a while since I put an MD-80 in one of my videos, because these things are so rare now. I mean, at least in the US, all the legacy or main passenger carriers have retired MD-80s, MD-90s, so it's pretty cool that I was able to put this in. Because World Atlantic has about 5 of these flying around. We do get these in my hometown, Champaign. We get these like every week now, because our basketball team, the University of Illinois basketball team, they use these to go to their away games. So I get to see these all the time. It's really cool. But World Atlantic, aside from operating sports charters, they're also doing these deportation flights from mainly Latin American countries to the U.S. So that is the last aircraft of the update. Let's go ahead and conclude the video. Alright, so that concludes this airport update for Guatemala City. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was something unique and fun for you all. Hopefully it didn't get too boring. I know my voice is a bit monotonous, so hopefully that didn't bore you at points. But that's it. And while we're on the subject of Guatemala, I thought this would be pretty fun. Here's this little Guatemala pen that I bought in the airport. I think I bought this notebook as well in the airport, right around this area. But this is whenever I want to make these airport updates, I write down all the routes and stuff. I write them down in this notebook with this pen, funny enough, and then I just kind of rip out the page so I can cover it easily. But yeah, handmade cover for that one, and then it's actually a regular pen. It's just the cover that was made with these beads and stuff. It's a regular like generic pen, as you can see, but the cover is pretty cool. That's why I bought it. But anyway, I thought that was pretty relevant to the subject. Big announcement though, my second channel, AS Jets, it is coming back. I'm proud to announce, excited to announce that I am bringing it back. Gonna start uploading model content, other random stuff on that channel as well. So go subscribe to it if you haven't already. Card is in the top right corner. Link's gonna be in the description below. Go subscribe if you haven't already to AS Jets. Videos gonna be coming out over the next few weeks and hopefully for the future as well. So yeah, I got some other updates with the channel that'll be coming soon, but I will reveal those at a later time. Until then, thank you all again for watching. Stay around till the end. But that's it. Again, take care everybody, and I will see you later. Goodbye.